but they are an African species. They have the white coloring on their throat with a little bit of yellow on their cheeks, and they have beautiful emerald eyes. The ones in Ontario are pretty much black and brown looking, and they have red evil eyes. So they look quite different when you get a chance to look them up close. Now the guy over to my left, and there are two of his buddies over on the right-hand side. Those are pigback pelicans. When they lift up their wings, you can see a little bit of pig feathering underneath, and they are a species of pelican that exists on our planet and do travel throughout the country of Africa, or the continent of Africa. And on my right-hand side, the big guy looking at me like, please don't touch me. His name is Sheldon, and he is a great white pelican, the largest species of pelican out of the 8 different kinds that there are. And he is also found in Africa. Now the other guys here are, the last guys that I'll talk about are Cape Shelducks. We have 2 boys and 2 girls, and you can tell them apart because the girls have the white faces. All these species come from the same general zone on the planet, and that's why they're here living together in our African penguin exhibit. Good, nobody beats up on each other too much. Now let me go ahead and talk to you about the highlight of this exhibit, which are our penguins. We have 12 adults, 6 boys and 6 girls, and we have 3 juvenile penguins. You can tell the juveniles from the adults because they actually look like a different kind of penguin entirely. They have their juvenile feathering, so they are a different color. They have the blue, black coloring on their backs, and the white bellies. So they're going to look like that for about a year, and then they will molt, which means that they will lose those feathers and get a brand new set. And the brand new set underneath is going to be that black and white traditional coloring, and that's how they'll be for the remainder of their lives. They'll be black and white. Now, African penguins obviously come from Africa. They do live off the coast of South Africa all the way up to the country of Namibia. They are one of the 17 different kinds of penguins that exist on our planet. Most of us only think of a couple different kinds of penguins, and we don't realize there are actually that many diverse species out there. And the reason being is we only see a few highlighted species on TV. There are 17 different species, but they have one thing in common. They come from the southern hemisphere. So most penguins, you will never find in the wild a penguin high-fiving a polar bear like some of the come-ups you see on TV. They're really cute, but they don't exist in the same place. So now what these guys are, what's familiar about these guys versus some of the other guys is they have a traditional black and white coloring. They have those famous tuxedo look to them, and if you get a chance to see them up close, they have little black spots on their belly. So make sure you have a view of them in the underwater viewing area. The black spots on their bellies are actually unique to each penguin. So if you and I have a fingerprint that's unique to each of us, those penguins can be seen apart by their little spot patterns. That's kind of fun to know. Now we make it easier for ourselves in the zoo setting to be able to tell them apart. We put those colorful wing bands on them. So we can tell that DJ is right here looking at me, and Ziggy's right there, she looks really plump right now. And then I can tell the babies apart by their bands as well. If anybody gets a chance to look, of course, we do have some penguins that are missing their bands. They've lost them over time. But we're good enough to know what each penguin looks like, and by that spot pattern, I can still tell who's who. Now, in the next couple months, if you come back and visit us, you will see that our penguins are going to get some brand new bands on their wings, and it will actually have each of their names on them, so you'll get to know them as the unique little creatures that they are. So these guys in a natural environment do eat fish. So when I feed them lunch, I'm going to feed them fish as well, because it's what's natural for them. And they all eat different amounts, so we do record what we feed them. Now, we brought them back here to the Toronto Zoo after a long period of time of not being here, because they became an endangered species back in 2010. So the reason that they came back here was because we had this nice, large, empty exhibit pool. We built them a brand new house. So they're here as a permanent exhibit. So every time you come back to the Toronto Zoo, you'll be able to see these guys, whether you visit in the summer or the winter. And over time, you will see this population grow. So we started off with 12, now we have 15, and upwards of 60 penguins could live in this exhibit with all the other birds. So if you keep coming back to see us, hopefully we will have all these success stories of new babies each year being introduced back into this colony. It's really important for us to keep this population going because unfortunately in their natural environment we're losing them at a very fast rate. If you can believe it or not, that back in the early 1900s, there were over 1 million of these guys over in Africa. And now we're down to less than 60,000 of them. And out of those 60,000 of them, not all of them are actually able to produce young. So the number of penguins is not growing rapidly enough, but they are dying out at a very fast rate. Now, what's happening to these guys is where they live, they are in the direct transport route of big oil tankers. So if these guys are out in the ocean fishing for a lot of the day, you can imagine those big oil tankers are traveling in their direct pathway, and they have oil in their ballast. And unfortunately, on a regular basis, they're releasing oil back into the ocean. So it's not doing our oceans any good to have those oil tankers on the water. Now what you and I can do is we can try and cut our energy use. So it seems kind of weird. What's the connection? So who helps their parents shop at the grocery store? See quite a few hands. Good. You guys all help your parents shop at the grocery store? Now who can make sure that you use a reusable bag when you shop for your groceries? That should be everybody. Try as much as possible not to use a plastic bag or buy a plastic bag. Oil is used in the manufacturing of plastic. So the less you buy plastic, the less we need those oil tankers on the ocean. Simple thing you can do here in Canada that actually helps penguins. Now the second thing is these guys need to eat a lot of fish, and they need a lot of fish in order to feed their babies. Unfortunately, the fish populations are being overfished on a regular basis because the human population is growing so fast. You and I like to eat fish for our dinners, well most of us, not everybody. And unfortunately, the demand for fish is very high right now. And there are some fisheries that are doing things properly, and unfortunately there are fisheries that are doing things not so good. So what they're doing is they're catching the wrong types of fish, they're catching too many fish, because usually there's a limit, and then unfortunately they're doing things like damaging the ocean floor with their nets, they're catching sea turtles, and they're catching dolphins. So what we want to do is we want to try and support the fisheries that are doing things the